This is the, I'm going to call to order the October 18th meeting of the Village of Oxford Planning Commission. In order to get started, if you would all please rise with me and state the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, Madam Secretary, if you'd be kind enough to perform a roll call for us.
Adam Johnson is excused. Commissioner Curtis.
Here.
Commissioner Deeg is excused. Chair Douglas.
Here.
Commissioner Helmuth.
Here.
Commissioner Staley.
Here.
And we have one vacancy.
I'll make a motion to excuse Commissioners Deeg and Johnson from the regular meeting.
Second. Oh, finally got it.
And Madam Secretary, if you'd be kind enough to correct the spelling of my name in the roll call, I'd appreciate that much.
I'll let the manager know.
Thank you very much. I
I
appreciate it.
did notice that myself.
Thank you very much. I would now entertain motions for approval of agenda.
We need to vote on that.
You need to vote on it.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I
That's
apologize.
okay.
Okay.
We'll accept it.
Don't. Yeah.
You're going to vote on the roll call.
Yes, you are.
All right.
The exclusion of Deeg.
All right, I understand. So let's go ahead and take a voice vote for the exclusion of our two commissioners who are not present this evening.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. I'll now entertain a motion for the approval of previous agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the regular Planning Commission meeting for the Village of Oxford, Tuesday, October 18th, 2016.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any negative? Thank you very much. Now I will accept or entertain an approval of previous minutes from the regular meeting held on September 6th.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 16th regular meeting as presented.
Second.
All right, that's a motion offered and seconded, so I would ask for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, thank you very much. All right, now reading correspondence into the record. We have received two letters this month. One was from a local resident, and I'll get to that in just a second.
Don't read those until the public hearing closes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's on the item.
So I want to accept a motion then to receive these correspondence and
File.
place them into file.
I actually had one question, I think. I just didn't understand what it meant, but I can't find it.
Don't read those.
Oh.
Just the letters.
Okay. Okay.
What does shade doors mean at 56 Oxford? Joe, do you know?
On the ordinance review.
It says shade doors freshly mowed. First page of the
doors.
code enforcement officer's report.
For 56,
I think it was a house that has been vacant for several months, and Dan...
Oh, he must have shook the doors.
He goes over to check to make sure that the house is secure.
I'll make a motion to receive and file correspondence.
Second.
all right, we have a motion on the table and a second for receiving correspondence. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to item 7, which is a presentation. We have no presentation listed in the agenda for this evening.
Yay.
So we move on to now public hearings. I would accept a motion that we open the meeting for a public hearing.
Second.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for the rezoning request of Industrial Machine Products Incorporated from RM1 and RM2 multiple family to I1 industrial at 7:04 PM.
Second.
Good, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, motion carries. We are now in public hearing. As my friend Jack Curtis said, this is a public hearing to hear testimony on rezoning request from Industrial Machine Products Incorporated. They have requested their property be rezoned from RM1 and RM2, multiple family, to I1, which is industrial.
have two letters. You want to-
All right, good. In regards to this hearing, the chair would like to take this opportunity to read a pair of letters that have been received regarding this request to rezone. Thank you, Jack. I have one letter from Mr. Brian Anderson, who is a local resident, and this is addressed to the commission chair, or commission secretary, and it's regarding the Village of Oxford Planning Commission. Mr. Brian Anderson goes on to state, I don't think 32 and 45 Louth Street industrial machine products should be rezoned to industrial. I live in a condominium down the street and I can hear pounding coming from that building even inside my condo. What we need is more housing and businesses in the village, not industrial. We have a beautiful downtown and we don't need industrial in the heart of it. Give industrial machine products a tax break to move out of the village and into the township. You can also do the same for TKMS Trucking. Thank you for your time. This is signed from Brian Anderson. I also have a letter here from Joe Frost, who is the director of the Downtown Development Association. And this is addressed to me on this date at 3 p.m. He says, Dear Gary, I am unable to attend the Planning Commission meeting this evening, but I am writing to express the DDA's position on the rezoning request at the property owned by Industrial Machine Products Incorporated. Given the nature of the business and the fact that they have been at that location for years, the DDA staff recommendation is to support the recommendation of the village planner and grant the rezoning request from RM1 and RM2 to I1 Industrial. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you. Regards, Joe Frost, Executive Director, Oxford DDA.
You asked the public if there's any comments.
Okay, I will now open the meeting up during this public hearing for any public comments. You're welcome to please step to the podium, state your name and address, and then address your comments to the chairman, please.
Hi, my name's Tom Storr. I live at 21 Center Street, so just a stone's throw away from the rezoning request. At the risk of being ignorant, because I honestly don't know what it means to go from RM to industrial, so it'd be nice to hear something about that. Because between what I have going on, I haven't had the time to research it. But I did want to attend because any change in rezoning that would result in more noise or anything like that, I am not in favor of. I'm a pretty deep sleeper, but I can hear it in the middle of the night. But those who also live in my household, my wife, who isn't as fortunate as me to be a deep sleeper, gets woken up by those noises, and she has kind of odd schedules, so she gets to bed relatively early, and to be woken up at a late hour when she has to wake up at 3 or 4 doesn't work out very well for us.
Joe, can I ask a question?
Please, go right ahead.
Where do you live again?
21 Center Street.
Center, okay.
Yep, right by the piano place.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Storr. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Susan Passeri, 35 Burdick Woods Court. I lived in Oxford all my life, and as far as I know, that business has been there for all my life that I can remember. I think that they've been loud previously because I can remember hearing it at where I used to live. But I believe that noise has decreased significantly, and I believe that they're good neighbors. They're a good business here in town. They're recovering from some bad years, and we can't afford to lose good businesses.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Any other comments?
Pete Schultz, Oxford Fire Chief. We abut the property. The truck traffic and everything that serves them goes past our property, on a regular basis. I I want to get it mentioned just in public to the Planning Commission to consider, and I've already talked to Joe to go into the future, the end of Church Street, which technically is their parking lot, and also the end of Lauk Street, which continues on up into the fire department property, that I wish that the village would take that under consideration to vacate both of those pieces of property. And number one, would put that part of it back on the tax rolls for the end of Church Street, but at the same time, it is, technically, it's dead end for both of them. It's not being used by anybody. That would be a request.
Thank you very much, Chief. Obviously, we won't be able to take that request into consideration in this meeting, but your comments are noted. Any other public comments?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing at 7:10 PM.
All right, I'd accept that.
Second?
Accept that motion. There's a motion on the table to close public hearing. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, that motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 9, which is old business. We have no old business on our agenda this evening, so we can then proceed right to item 10, which is new business. First item under new business is to consider the rezoning request by Industrial Machine Products to change the zoning on their property from RM1 and RM2 multiple family to I1, which is industrial.
The applicant can tell you.
When was it changed from industrial to RN, to residential? When was that change made?
Chris has the answer.
So the best that we could find in 2006, it was changed.
Six?
Yes. And that appears to have been in conjunction with a proposed development that would have been a multiple family development on the land to their east and also the land to their north in the township. That development never happened, obviously. The land's still vacant, but the zoning stayed in place.
Testimony.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman?
Chris, was that not done administratively?
Yeah, as far as we can tell.
Property owners didn't know it when this happened. It was done without their knowledge.
Well, I don't know if we can say that for sure. We can say, based on the records that we found, that it was initiated by the village and not by the property owners.
And we can't find.
But I'm not sure if the property owners at the time were notified effectively or not. I mean, not sure what you remember from a decade ago.
Call the order and have the
I'm going to let the applicant.
Right,
take a stand.
right.
And then I'll ask my
Mr. Navarro, you've come to give testimony this evening. If you'd be kind enough to step up to the podium.
Everybody that speaks has to come to the podium. She's not picking it up on camera.
That's correct.
My name's Dave Navarro. I'm actually the general manager at Industrial Machine Products. And it is to our knowledge and the owner's knowledge that we went through everything we had, and we had no record of getting notice that we were changed from industrial to residential. It wasn't until I started to speak with Mr. Young about the possibility of us expanding that we discovered that we were residential and that was going to stop us. So the ownership did not know that the property was changed.
Surprise.
Yeah. You can ask Chris to explain the difference between RM1 and,
Sure, I will.
but
My statement is IMP has been in the village for longer than I have been alive. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate the noise on Center Street and Lounge Street and Washington Street and Pleasant Street and I can hear it at my house sometimes. And I have no problems with the rezoning request as is. However, I think the planning commission should take the initiative when they go to do any expansion, that they have to do some soundproofing. We used to make spearing tools. They weren't allowed to open their doors when they were in operation. And we do have to do something for the tenants
Site plan.
in the area, the condos in the rear, the houses next to them, and get that noise under control as much as can be done.
Absolutely, and I live it every day. I sit there every day, and I know the bang. I've been in stamping my entire life. I would not want to live next to a stamping plant. Unfortunately, the stamping plant's been there for a long time, and that's difficult when people move in. if we are allowed to expand and this all goes through, part of our plan would be to take measures to help lessen the noise. Part of our expansion is to get into new technology. We're looking to get out of the conventional stamping business and into the servo machines, which is a much different style. Our business model going forward is to become more of a assembly company, more of a value add. Unfortunately, in order to do that, you have to have different equipment. In order for us to have different equipment, we need more space. In the process of doing that space, especially where this gentleman's located, we're hoping to close that off so that you wouldn't have the noise coming out that side of the building. And those things will all be taken into account as we expand and the cost involved and that. But we do try to be a good neighbor. We're a family-first company, and we, not just our family inside the plant, but what's important to us is the community here, so. I know that doesn't help, unfortunately, and just so you know, we do take measures to try and lessen it, and we really, truly do. If there's nothing else,
You can have a seat for now, Mr. Navarro. Thank you very much.
thank you for your time.
Yes. Chair would like to address Mr. Corey. If you'd be kind enough to give us some testimony on exactly the details of this rezoning and exactly what RM1, RM2 means and
Absolutely.
what the impact would be perhaps of a rezoning change.
Sure. So to go with the background you requested and for the public, the RM1 and RM2 zoning categories are multiple family residential zoning categories. As I mentioned, as far as we could tell, the village made this change 10 years ago because it looked like a development was going to come in, and that didn't end up happening, but the change has remained on the books. Functionally, the business is allowed to continue as they have been continuing. They're called legal nonconformity. It means they existed before the zoning was changed. However, they are, under the current zoning, prohibited from expanding. Their building can't get bigger. Well, that's really the best definition of expanding we have. They can't make the building bigger. They came in to ask about the process for making the building bigger, and they were told they can't, unless they go back to an industrial classification, under which they would be a legal use. They'd be able to expand within, of course, the setback requirements and everything else in the zoning ordinance. I do want to make clear that regardless of the zoning district that they're in, they are subject to the noise standards in the zoning ordinance, which are in section 6.1.26a, to quote chapter and verse. Those are objective decibel levels measured from specific places. If there are concerns about noise in the neighborhood, and I've been over there and I've heard the noise as well, that separate from this process, they should be addressed by code enforcement under the village. And if you have a concern, please direct it to Mr. Young, who will direct it to code enforcement. And I also agree with the Planning Commission that in the event this rezoning is approved and a site plan comes before you for the expansion to the building, that the noise issues should be taken into account. And I appreciate Mr. Navarro's statements that they're looking at some technology that would reduce the noise. So I think that's really the comment right now on noise. It's that is an issue to discuss when it comes to this rezoning. However, we're talking about an existing building. We're talking about existing business. It makes the noise now. It would make the noise zone multiple family. It would make the noise zone industrial. And if without a change, we're talking about a business that really can't do much in terms of expanding and employing more people and expanding its business. So, on to the review. I did give the historic background as far as we can tell from the records that we found at McKenna and that the village has found in terms of the change being made back in 2006, being initiated by the village. I guess to me it's not clear if the proper notice was made, but I'm not actually sure that's relevant 10 years on. It's been zoned multiple family for 10 years now in terms of all the enforcement that's gone on. So the question is, should it be switched back to industrial today? Well, the first thing to take into account is what's around it in terms of existing, what's around it in terms of zoning, and what's around it in terms of the master plan. In terms of existing, it's an industrial use. It's surrounded on the north and east by pretty much vacant land, some of which obviously is in the township. On the west, it's surrounded by the fire department and some other commercial uses, and on the south, of course, by residential and the Pollyant Trail. In terms of zoning, and you have on page 2 of my report, both the village and township zoning maps. The version of the township zoning map I had is blurry. I'm sorry about that. In the township to the north, you're talking mainly about commercial and industrial with a small residential neighborhood. It is there right north of the site, but if you look to the northeast and northwest, you're talking about commercial and industrial in the township. In terms of the village, it's similar to our existing development pattern. You've got commercial and the fire department's zone C2, which is the commercial category, to the west. And then you've got mostly residential to the south, with the exception of the little building right at the corner of Center and Lauk, which was rezoned in the last few years to C1 transition on the logic that that's not a residential building and could never be converted to a residential building. So it was zoned to a commercial category. I'm not actually sure there's a use in that building right now anyway. In terms of the master plan, which was just adopted last week by the village council, the new master plan update shows this site as industrial. And it shows the site as industrial because of the existing business, that it's our understanding some sort of industrial business has been there for almost a century. This one in particular has been there since the 1980s. And the discussion for the master plan committee and then the planning commission and then the council was that this business should be supported and therefore is planned industrial. One of the big questions that you're asked when you're asked about a rezoning is, what does the master plan say? Because the master plan is the basis for the zoning ordinance and for the zoning map. So it's a big point in favor of granting this rezoning that the master plan says industrial. That moves me on to some of the other questions that you should ask yourself when deciding whether to grant this rezoning. The first is the compatibility of the physical nature of the site for the uses in the district. Obviously, from a natural standpoint, it's a flat piece of land. It's been developed for beyond anyone's lifetime here, and it has an existing industrial business on it. So that's, again, a big point in favor of making this switch. Second is whether the applicant could receive a reasonable return on investment developing the property through one of the uses permitted in the current district. Well, we know there's demand for multiple family nationally, statewide, and in the Oxford area. However, if someone's looking to develop multiple family, they're not going to want to buy out an existing industrial business, tear down the industrial facility, deal with any contamination, and then build multiple family, when they could come to one of our other sites that are already ready to go in that regard. So I think that's something to consider. Next is the compatibility of all the potential uses in the proposed zoning district with surrounding uses. This is one that trips us up sometimes. When people come in and say, I need a rezoning because I've got this great business. And we say, that's a great business, but the zoning district you're asking for would allow you to put a steel mill there. I mean, just to give a crazy exaggeration. This is our industrial category. However, we're talking about stamping. We're talking about a fairly intense industrial use already. We're talking about one that, while people have brought up the concerns about its current operations, is not necessarily going to become more intense just because you gave it the zoning category that fits. So I think that's the relevant one.
Okay, I will.
Next is the capacity of utilities. I haven't seen any indication that there's any issue with the utilities that would prevent it from being industrial use. It already is an industrial use. Capacity of the street system. If we were building this from scratch, I'd be concerned about the street system because we are off of Washington, off of Glassby. But again, it's been there for a long time. The truck traffic is not going to change just because you change the zoning category. And the next one is whether the site would be able to meet the dimensional regulations of the new zoning district. I-1 is designed to accommodate industrial needs. That's what it's for. So while there may be some existing nonconformities, it's not, that's just because the building's been there for a long time. And it's not because you couldn't build an industrial building on the site. Now, the next question is whether this is the most appropriate zoning district. We only have one industrial category, so if we want to allow it to be an industrial business, this is the category to go with. The next one is whether a better solution would be to allow this use in the current district. And I really don't think that makes any sense, because why would we allow stamping in a residential district? And then the last one is whether it'll create an isolated or incompatible zone. Again, if we were doing this from scratch, it's probably not how we'd do it. But this is a business has been in this location for a long time, and at this point, we'd have to go to what the letter said. We'd have to find some incentive for them to move, and then a new developer, and there's a lot of burden on the village when instead a major employer in the village should just be able to allow it to expand on their site. So, based on that, I think you've got three highly relevant findings here. Number one, the site is master planned for industrial. So it's supported. This idea is supported by the master plan. Number two, on two sides you've got vacant land. On a third side you've got compatible uses. You do have some problems to the south with the residential, but the residential and this industrial site have been together for a long time. And again, if some of the noise issues can be resolved in the site plan process and through enforcement and through Mr. Navarro's stewardship of his business, then that could be kind of taken care of. And then finally, this is clearly the best zoning district for this use. There isn't really another option. So based on all that, we are recommending the Planning Commission give your recommendation to the Village Council to rezone the site from multiple family to I-1 industrial. Thank you.
Mr. Corey, I appreciate all your comments. Thank you very much for that. I want to take you back just a moment to the start of your presentation.
Okay.
It's very clear to this commissioner that good neighbors are really important. And the majority of the comments that I heard that were complaints or against this activity occurring on this parcel of property is one of noise. And you mentioned that the Village of Oxford does have a noise ordinance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is it enforceable in this case?
I would hope so. In terms of knowing whether they're meeting the standard or not, we'd have to take a noise meter out there. The standard is 55 decibels as measured at the lot line. And that may be a tough standard to meet, but that's the standard. And so I think the village maybe will want to make sure that's measured and that any steps taken to mitigate that can move forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Young, please, if you'd be so kind. Over your tenure here, if you'd kindly step to the podium. Over your tenure here, have you been aware of any violations or complaints that have been offered to the village about noise nuisance at this property?
None until this public hearing.
So no one has ever called
That I can
and
recall.
complained, and there's never been a need for our
Not that I
staff to go
recall.
out there and perform a noise ordinance check to make sure that noise is not exceeding our ordinance levels?
No, to my knowledge, there's not been any complaints other than we've received from this public hearing, and I'm not aware of any testing as a result from those complaints either.
I understand.
We certainly can arrange to check that.
I thank you very much. I appreciate
I
it.
have a question.
I'll give it to you in just a second, Bonnie. Mr. Navarro, please, if you'd return to the podium. I just want to get a handle on exactly what the hours of your operations are in terms of on a day-to-day basis and whether or not you're running just one shift a day or 3 shifts a day or et cetera.
We are a two-shift operation. Our first shift runs from 6:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Our second shift begins at 3:30 and promptly ends at midnight.
And what are you currently producing?
Metal stampings for the automotive industry.
I see.
And
Are these
some-
big, heavy steel stampings, or are they sheet
No,
metal
we would
stampings,
be-
or?
We would be considered
Okay, I'm
a
just curious.
small stamper. Our largest press is 400 tons.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You can step down.
Oh, no problem.
No, well,
All right.
in our industry, I mean, they run 800
I know nothing
800
about
to
stamping.
2,600 tons. We are a very small.
Sure, I appreciate it. Bonnie, you had questions. You have a question for Mr. Navarro?
No, I have a question for Chris.
Okay, you could step down, Mr. Navarro. Thank you very much.
Chris, how much new development in the residential area has there been since, this rezoning was done? How many, since it was rezoned residential, How
Well,
much new construction
New
has been
development
around?
in this immediate vicinity? Well, I can say there's been none in the immediate vicinity since I've been here, and that I've been here since 2012. So anyone before that, Joe, Sue, it's all vacant land to the east.
I think the last residential in that area was the Depot Street condominiums.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been anything on Powell Street. The Loud Street condos are older, apartments are older than that. So I would say the Depot Street condos would be the last, yes.
I know that I just moved into my.
Thank you, Mr. Storr.
They did build that house, or moved a house, converted a house.
They remodeled the house I'm living in right now on 21 Center Street. The gentleman who actually owned and remodeled it, his name's Mike Menino, and he owns a construction business, and he does high-end houses. But he probably owned 2/3 or 1/3 of that street. So he had another house, and my neighbor across the street had actually brought this to my attention because the letter had gotten lost in my stack of mail. So he didn't end up coming today, but I know he was in the same situation where he bought a house that had just been remodeled from the same gentleman. So I know that if I was a guessing man, another housing facility probably hadn't been built relatively recently. But I know that there's probably been a lot of turnover. I know that another neighbor across the street from me just bought the house across the street to the right, and they're remodeling that house, so there should be another family moving in there relatively soon.
And there might have been a duplex built on Center Street, but that was more than 10 years. Not that long ago, not that old.
And I guess one more statement regarding the noise complaint is we've been in the house for a little over a year now, and I probably would have made a complaint had I had the time to look up the avenue to make it. So now that I know that Mr. Young is here and I can hop over a row and talk to him, I think that's probably the route I'm going to take. However, I think that rezoning it industrial is the logical choice. I think it's been there for a while. Not being happy with the noise complaint, obviously being a stone's throw away from the facility, you can understand where I'm coming from. However, I don't know that it's the best answer. Being someone who grew up in Oxford, went to Oxford High School, middle school. I've since graduated from Oak University and moved back to Oxford now that I'm a working adult. And looking for a place to raise a family, I wouldn't want to raise infants and toddlers in the house I'm living in right now.
Do you know, because the bridge is right there, does that offer any noise for the people who live right up to it? Have you ever talked to-
From people going across the bridge?
No, the houses that are on the south side of the bridge versus the people who are past the bridge. Is there a noise difference, do you know, or?
I haven't talked to my neighbor, my immediate neighbor, who's also backs up right to the bridge, so maybe there's a little bit of a buffer. Being kind of right at the end of the bridge and right next to the other commercial land, there's actually a piano, I don't know, it's a piano business. They dismantle and move pianos. That offers some blockage. I don't notice any difference in noise if I was standing on the other side. I know that my neighbor across the street, 22 Center Street or something, he says he notices it. He doesn't have any blockage. His house basically, it might be the closest one to the building. But just for, well, maybe not the ones on that same road on Lauk or whatever the one it's on might be closer, but you kind of get where I'm coming from.
Mr. Storr, thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Staley, did you have any other questions for anyone? Commissioner Helmuth, did you have any questions you wanted to pose or comments?
I don't think I do.
I have
Commissioner
none.
Curtis? None? All right. Did I? Madam President?
Pete and I were just talking, and I think those condos were built sometime in the mid-'90s, that they've been there. That's the most recent development. Anything else has just been, like the gentleman said, remodeled homes, people that have bought rundown homes and flipped them.
All right, thank you very much. All right, commissioners, any other comments or questions? All right, I would entertain a motion then in regards to this issue.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the Oxford Village Council the rezoning of 34 and 45 Lauk Street, parcel ID numbers as follows: 04-22-455-005, parcel number 04-22-455-006, parcel number 04-22-458-003, and last parcel 04-22-458-005 from RM1 and RM2 to I1 Industrial based on the current master plan. End of motion.
I'll support.
All right, I would like to then, with a motion on the table, I would like to have a roll call vote on this matter, with each commissioner giving a yay or a nay, signifying they are in favor or not in favor of this rezoning issue. Madam Secretary?
Chair Douglas.
Yay.
Commissioner Helmuth.
Yes.
Commissioner Staley.
Yes.
Adam Johnson is excused. Commissioner Curtis.
Yes.
Commissioner Deek is excused. And there is a vacancy.
All right, the motion carries. We will make a recommendation, as Commissioner Curtis has noted and passed off to the Secretary. And Mr. Navarro, will make that recommendation to the Village Council, that your property be allowed for rezoning. All right, item A being completed, we move on now, new business under medical marijuana discussion regarding attorney questions.
There's the attorney.
He is not here.
Our attorney's not
However,
here tonight.
When Bob doesn't
Hang on a
send
second,
you
Chris.
guys things very often. When he does, it's very important that you all respond. We were hoping to get,
I'm not sure
I don't understand either.
I know that, I'm trying to get the email.
We're trying to get an idea of where the planning commission wants to go with this. And we thought everyone might be more comfortable under attorney-client privilege to answer those questions rather than in a public meeting. I mean,
Discuss this.
the information's gonna come out to the public eventually when they see us voting. But it's really important that everybody respond to Bob. I hope everybody knew who Bob was, first of all.
I had to ask, actually.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
And if you ever get anything like this again, you can call me, you can call Joe, you can call Chris, you can call anybody you want.
I called Sue. She was
Don't
gracious.
call Sue, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
She was helpful. Well, I think that because our attorney is not here this evening, and because clearly each commissioner has not responded to his request for information, I think, according to what I understand, I'm the only one who submitted information to the attorney. I'd like to table this for now.
I submitted.
Oh, did you too? All right, thank you, Bonnie, I appreciate that.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
Chris, I'm sorry, Chris, I'll come back to you, and
No, that's fine.
are there issues that you want to discuss tonight?
No, really, it's on the agenda just to remind you to make sure you guys all respond to Bob Davis,
Okay,
so that he can compile the comments and help the village determine how to move forward and react to the new legislation.
all right, I appreciate that. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. In regards to that, then, I'd like to table item B under,
I'll make a motion to set the
Second.
marijuana conversation aside.
all right, good, I appreciate
Second.
that. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're going to set that aside and table it for a later discussion. Item 11 is public comment. This is agenda and non-agenda items. The floor is open to anything we want to hear from any member of the public who's here.
Seeing none.
Okay, none heard. I'll pass on to that. Next item is consultant comments. Chris, the floor is yours, and if you have anything you want to discuss, it's all yours.
Just briefly, McKenna did receive an authorization from the council, and I just received the signed authorization from Mr. Young to work with the Economic Development Subcommittee on taking the ideas they've been discussing with regard to zoning and turn them into actual amendments. When the subcommittee is ready to turn those over to you, you will see them. I'll have a presentation. They are individually, it looks to me like individually they're not going to be super substantial. However, there are going to be a lot of them. So when we have that discussion, it'll be, I guess I would please just ask everyone to make sure you read in advance, because we won't have time during the meeting to go through every single one. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you bet. All right, commissioner comments? Commissioner Helmuth?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Jack?
Joe knows the individual that butts up to Edison Alley. He used to be on the fire, used to be the fire department years ago. What's his name? What is it? Dale. He met me at Myers the other day, and he wanted to know why the arbs on Edison Alley are dying. They've been dead all summer, and wants to know when they were going to replace them. It's the only comment I've got from the community in the past week, 2 weeks. Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Okay, that, Commissioner Curtis, thank you. Commissioner Staley? Any comments? The floor is open to me then. Speaking as the chairman of this august body, Mr. Storr, I want you to know how much I appreciate your taking the time out to come and speak with us tonight. And I want to personally assure you that your comments are heard and understood. Personally, I take the fact that citizens actually attend this organization and speak their mind is the heart of what makes this country great.
Yep.
And so, you know, unfortunately, this is from your standpoint, perhaps this is a deal that didn't turn out the way you would prefer it to have. But that's the way things go sometimes. That's why we meet in a deliberative body like this and we make decisions accordingly. But I do want you to know how much I appreciate your comments, and also Mr. Anderson for taking the time to let me know how they feel and to let this body know how they feel. And a lot of consideration and a lot of thought went into this. And so I want you to know that it wasn't haphazard or just of no concern, because this is very important to us. Having good neighbors is very important. I will probably speak out of turn here, and if I do, I apologize. I appreciate your comments about being a good neighbor. My expectation is that since you have been given this boon, you will continue to be a good neighbor. And although I can't, I want you to know I appreciate the fact that you stood in front of us and said you believed in a family business and being good neighbors, and I hold you to that. And so understand that your neighbors are concerned about the amount of noise that you're making, and anything that you can do. I don't think that I have the authority to do anything other than what we have in our village ordinance, but you know, if you keep in mind that your neighbors are concerned and they would appreciate you can keep the noise down, conduct business, but do it as best you can, I guess. I appreciate that a lot, I really do. All right, Commissioner Curtis, that's the end of my comments for now. Commissioner Curtis, as our Oxford Township Planning Commission representative, we'd like to hear an update from you if you have anything to report.
At our last Planning Commission meeting, we approved the new cell tower that was requested by Verizon to go into the Seymour Lake Park. It required a special land use. It wasn't that the township was looking for a cell tower. This was a need that was identified to kill the dead zones out in that area. The Parks and Recreation, I've got a packet here. At Seymour Lake, they're starting phase one of the move to build a community center. We're building our maintenance shed, if you will. I'll let anybody see this. Oxford Township Parks and Rec is building a 7,000 square foot maintenance shed, and I'll leave that there if anybody wants to see it. That's progressing great. The third and final thing is the township will be starting its master plan with planning meetings on the fourth Thursday beginning in January. So if anybody wants to attend and give input into the Oxford Township master plan, we will start that the fourth Thursday in January. It'll be the fourth Thursday in February, and until we get everything master planned and figured out. So I'd welcome you all to attend. That's it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. One last thing I'd like to bring to your attention. The Village of Oxford will be holding a public presentation meeting on October 27th, which is a soon-to-be-arriving Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Emmanuel Congregation Church on Hovey Street, in which the purpose of considering the Oxford Station mixed-use development for this building right here. The presentation will be by Venture Incorporated for the senior housing, commercial retail, and office space, including village offices and police department. Anyone wishing to comment on the proposed development may do so in person during the meeting or in writing by emailing the village offices. And that'll be happening, like I said, on Thursday, October 27th, and those of you that are interested may want to attend that meeting. There be no further business on our agenda. I will adjourn the meeting at 7:45, and thank you very much for your attendance and attention.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Say aye. Thank you.